At YNW Melly's latest court hearing, these photos were released. As you can see, YNW Melly is looking very confident in his court case, as the Florida rapper is still rocking his permanent diamond grill. It was also at this court hearing where the actual reason YNW Melly would be sentenced to life in prison came out. Now, the court revealed that YNW Melly may have admitted to doing the act towards YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser just hours after the incident happened. Now, as reported by Complex, they stated a new piece of evidence saying, and I quote, "There is one Instagram exchange that took place hours after the passings, which was obtained by Complex via a public records request. In it, YNW Melly's Instagram account says, 'I did that,' in one message, followed 2 minutes later by another message saying, 'Shh.' Now, the timing of these Instagram DMs, as remember, these messages were sent only a few hours after the passings, will be getting used against YNW Melly by the state to make the case that those messages amount to an admission by YNW Melly of his guilt. Now, a few messages later, the man, who was running a burner IG account at the time, messages YNW Melly saying, 'There's a Sig 9 on the market.' Now, the state is assuming that a Sig 9 is slang for some sort of firearm on the streets. YNW Melly replied to his message saying, 'I want it.' So law enforcement will try to match the firearm shells that were found at the scene of the crime to what they believe is a Sig 9. As on October 26, 2018, at roughly 3:30 a.m., YNW Melly was leaving a recording studio with YNW Bortland, Sakchaser, and Juvy. The four rappers all hopped inside of their Jeep before heading home. YNW Bortland, being the driver of the vehicle, had YNW Melly sitting directly behind him, then with YNW Sakchaser and YNW Juvy sitting on the opposite side of the car. So while driving home, YNW Bortland drove the vehicle into a side parking lot on a side street. With the vehicle sitting in park, law enforcement believes that YNW Bortland created a distraction inside of the car. Meanwhile, YNW Melly did the act towards YNW Sakchaser and Juvy. So here's where the hard-hitting evidence then comes in. Law enforcement teamed up with T-Mobile, the cell phone service that YNW Melly was linked with, and they were able to go back in time and use YNW Melly's cell phone as a GPS. So GPS evidence showed that YNW Melly stepped out of the Jeep after sitting in it for quite some time. They were then able to see YNW Melly walking around his Jeep in sort of like a circle motion before hopping back inside of the car. So the theory is that YNW Melly stepped out of the vehicle, he used his own firearm against it to make it appear as if they just went through a drive-by by rival street members. Then after some time passed, YNW Bortland then drove Sakchaser and Juvy to the local hospital for medical attention. Meanwhile, the same GPS evidence was able to track YNW Melly running home down the street on foot. It's very strange how YNW Melly didn't go to the local hospital with his two best friends. Now, YNW Melly's cell phone revealed most of the evidence in this court case. In more evidence files, it states, and I quote, "These particular cell phones, which were both iPhone 10s on the T-Mobile network." And so T-Mobile has a very interesting feature where it will tell you the environment the cell phone is in. So from these cell phone records, I can tell you the exact moment Demons got out of the car and staged the drive-by location. Now, Mr. Demons in these evidence files is actually YNW Melly. Weirdly enough, that is his last name. Now, also on YNW Melly's cell phone, they found a video on it. The evidence report says, and I quote, "Then also, we have a video of Mr. Demons admitting to doing an act towards two individuals in the head. This video was on Mr. Demon's cell phone, which was brought to my office by Jameson Francis. And that's how we had that, and that is all of the evidence that Your Honor has." So with only the courtroom seeing the video, sources say that on YNW Melly's cell phone, there was a 15-second video on it, where YNW Melly admits to doing the act towards Juvy and Sakchaser while doing a hand motion of him mocking and using a firearm. Now, all of this evidence is extremely concerning, but wait until you hear what witnesses said. So the lead detective on the YNW Melly case said in a deposition that YNW Sakchaser was set to receive around $200,000 from Melly's record label. YNW Melly's record label, known as 300 Entertainment, wanted no part in this court case. Now, the police attempted to subpoena 300 Entertainment during their investigation in order to investigate the 200 grand from YNW Sakchaser, but the detective explained that the company refused to honor our subpoena. So YNW Sakchaser's mother, Jana Thompson, then expanded on the $200,000 payment in a March 2022 deposition. Though she specified that she didn't know who exactly was going to pay this or what it was for, she said that her son, YNW Sakchaser, reached out to her a few days before he sadly passed. She says, "My son hysterically called me. She said he was very concerned about my whereabouts. He was concerned about his sister's whereabouts. He's concerned, like something is gonna happen to us." And then he went on to tell me that he is not going to get his money. She continued saying, he said, "I'm probably not going to get my $200,000. I'm probably not going to get my money, ma." So a little context on this, around the time that YNW Sakchaser sadly passed, his music career was just starting to take flight. Dropping hit songs such as Tropical and Back End, it got the attention of YNW Melly and his music label. So according to records, they claim that YNW Melly did the act towards YNW Sakchaser to avoid paying him 200 grand to join his record label. Now this is where it gets concerning. So if this turns out to be true, YNW Melly will be eligible for the penalty, as he used money as a motive to do this act. Now this actually explains why the prosecutors stated in the courtroom they are no longer interested in putting YNW Melly behind bars for life anymore. Instead, they want the penalty. This is because the parents of YNW Juvy and Sakchaser want justice for what happened to their boys, and especially if this was over money. Now in this court hearing, this is when even more evidence was released. So after running ballistics reports, all signs of who did this act was sitting where YNW Melly was in the vehicle. So here's a quick photo of where everyone was sitting. YNW Bortland, being the driver, had Melly behind him, with the other two on the opposite side. Now law enforcement used what's called the stick method, where they sit where YNW Melly was in the vehicle and then use plastic sticks to match the trajectory of a firearm that could have been used from where he was sitting. So the trajectory from YNW Melly's seat using the plastic sticks showed a perfect match to where YNW Sakchaser and Juvy were affected by the firearm on that night. Also in the new evidence reports, it states that once the act was done inside of the vehicle, that law enforcement were able to get a majority of the evidence using the GPS that I shared earlier in the video. But not only that, there was firearm shells found under the floor mats where YNW Melly was sitting in the vehicle, and that piece of evidence is still kinda up in the air. Nobody knows if that is actual hard-hitting evidence, or if those firearm shells were already there. As said by people in the courtroom and online lawyers, these firearm shells, they could have been there for months. Nobody knows yet until the official trial begins. That's why this piece of evidence isn't too crucial at this current time. Now, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. It's been District Trending, and I'm out. Peace.